Here's the problem. You pay all this money, good money, for systems manuals, processes, whatever terminology resonates with you. And you're so completely frustrated. First of all, you don't know if they work. So you spend all this money, hire these coaches, hire these legal professionals. I see it all day on Facebook. People pushing systems, process manuals, what have you, thinking it's going to solve all your problems. You buy them. You bring them into your law firm, super excited, hand them to your team in whatever format they come in, and you don't know if they're working or not until upset clients, dropping the ball, sometimes massive balls that could lead to malpractice, the thing that wakes you up at 2 o'clock in the morning, or cash flows in the tank, and we don't know they don't work or they're not being implemented until something breaks. And then we're so devastated, frustrated, upset because we hire good people, we think good people, we pay really good money for these systems manuals, these processes, what have you, and nobody's following them. Not that the systems manuals don't work. You've been hanging with me for a while. You know I'm a huge fan of systems and process. But the old way of how they're being delivered do not work. Creating the big book and documenting them in paper or what have you, and then handing them to someone and thinking that they're going to solve all your problems is not working anymore. And the team members, it doesn't penetrate, it doesn't resonate with them. Do you know how people learn best? Do you know if step 1 in the process still works? If they're following it. So handing your team members your process manuals, your systems manuals, and not having a communication structure in place consistently, persistently, from day 1, from hour 1, that they come on your team and or you invest in this new systems manual or process, and then coming back and tracking and measuring. I know you attorneys, I watch you all over Facebook, what have you. You love tracking. You love measurements. You love reporting. You love KPIs. So let's adopt that the way you do it in marketing, intake, and sales, and put that into your process and production and add that to it. And that's how you know if your systems work. Welcome to another episode of the Office Altering Hire and Empower with Molly McGrath podcast. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. If you're a first-time listener, hopefully you'll become a long-time listener. As always, I'm your show host, Molly McGrath, founder of Hiring and Empowering Solutions and creator of this revolutionary podcast. You can check us out at hiringandempowering.com. So, how do you do that? How do you do that? I had a call with someone this week, and they're working with a very well-renowned process and systems coach that's out there, and I love them, and saying, okay, great, we have these systems manuals, we have these process, what have you, they're great, but still, I'm like, well, why are you talking to me? Why are you calling me? Here's what's not working with my people. I don't know, the life cycle of the file. This isn't working, that's working, what have you. I'm like, let's just stop and thinking that systems and process are going to solve all our problems. Just like CRMs. We're always hopping from Smokeball to Clio to Practice Panther to Action Step, what have you. It's not the CRM. Sometimes it is. They're missing features. But it's the same thing with systems and process. The old, Time Matters or Goldmine, if you've been around forever, they did not invest in consistently upgrading their CRM. They didn't use think tanks to figure out what's working, what's not working, what have you. That's why those are dinosaur CRMs. It's the same thing with processes. Think about it. Think about the speed of AI. And I know a lot of attorneys are really scared of AI, confused about it. They think it's an either or conversation that they're going to replace, that it's not going to replace whatever your story and your head trash is about this. It's the same thing with systems. The best person to test if you have a system or a process is a person that knows nothing about it. So whether it's a new employee, or maybe somebody's up-leveling, or you're implementing a system finally for an existing area or department within your practice, the only way you know if it works is if you have a structure in place to test and measure it daily. Because what we did last week or last month might not be the best, most efficient, cost-efficient, effective way to do it. Having the big book and the paper manuals and what have you, that might not be how your team learn anymore. Yes, documentation is important, 100%. But in Law Firm Admin Bootcamp, I think it's week 4 or 5, we do this really fun exercise. Like, well, we don't have a system for blah, blah, blah. We're waiting for the attorney to sit down. We're waiting for our retreat. We're waiting for, time out. Let's gamify this and have fun. Okay, what's the problem? Intake, which typically is the number one problem within law firms. All right, let's walk through it. So you're here, Susie. You have a semi or maybe a beautifully polished $10,000 process that you got from some coach or organization. Great. Pull it out in whatever format you have, and let's walk through your day. Let's walk through the system, and let's figure out what works still. Let's figure out, and so your systems and process should be in motion, not a binder on a shelf, or not something that's in a Trainual or Coachable or Trello or what have you. They don't mean a hill of beans. And honestly, for so often as entrepreneurs and business owners, we've been told you need systems and process to sell your practice, to be able to scale, yes, that's true, but they're only as good as the people implementing them. Because if you buy all these system manuals and nobody follows them, and then shit hits a fan and you have to fire someone or they leave or what have you, and this revolving door keeps occurring, and you're so pissed off because you just spent $20,000, $10,000, $1,800 with a coach to get a system for intake or whatever it might be, and nobody's following it. We never think it's the format of the system or the process. Think about this. So right now, here's a fun exercise. Here's the solution for all this. Huge fan of systems and process, absolutely. But we have to make certain that they're, number one, relevant still. Number two, they are never a one and done. They are never sit on a shelf. We do not check the box that we finally have an intake system, because the way that we do things is going to consistently, should be evolving, it should be changing, and it should be easy on how we change it. So for example, the solution is take a system right now that you have. Maybe you think it's working beautifully. Maybe you have no idea if it's working. And this goes for you as team members too. Because so often, and you hear me say this all the time, the answer is in the room. The team member has the solution. So for team members, here's your homework. Use your voice. You know your job description, you know your role and goals and what have you. And if it's feeling heavy and hard, then it ain't working. But we're not going to just ditch it. We're going to pause. We're going to have fun, and we're going to sit with it and be like, okay, great. Here's our intake process right now. Pull out the trusty manual, whatever format it's in. Step 1. Step 1 is that we send the client the intake form or what have you. Well, guess what? The clients aren't doing their homework. We're still mailing it out, or maybe we're emailing it and it's still going to junk, and we don't have it in an automated system where we can see when they open it. It will save if they finish 10%, 2%, 3% of it, what have you. We get a notification. The client service coordinator will call them, hey, Mrs. Smith, I see that you're really struggling with this. We're revising the system. What are hacks And maybe that's a terminology that you can anchor to. Find some common language, team members and attorneys alike, that you can have within of how can we, people love scaling, they like leveling up, they like bottom line, like all these buzzwords that occur, but find something where we can consistently, refinement, efficiency, effective, yada, yada, yada. It's how can we hack this? How can we make it simpler? How can we make it more efficient? How can we make it so much easier on the client, which gets us what we need so we can get retained, so we can close our file quicker. So here's my invitation to you all. If you're employee, employer, what have you. Again, I am a huge fan of systems and process. I love them, but I don't love when you're buying them off of other people. Go buy them. That's, it's always easier to edit than create. So always, and we've learned that through the world of Google and AI and what have you, but it has to be in motion. You have to walk and talk your systems on the daily. So when we're looking at that, it's really interesting. I'll just tell you a story. I had this call yesterday, and we just implemented Facebook ads to workshop for a new firm. They're going bonkers. They had to shut down the workshop because they sold out, what have you. We're on the call yesterday. We're talking about what we're going to do pre, during, post event, what have you. And so we're talking about follow-up from an event that they did before. And I made a comment in regards to, I'm like, well, I made a comment, something like, well, that's part of the system isn't working. And I love it because a client service coordinator, she's been there for like 2 months, she raised her hand and she's like, I'm offended by that statement right now. And I'm like, oh, whoa, first of all, confidence, using your voice, etc. And we had a conversation, and it was really fascinating because the system was working. The tracking and measurement and the data that we were getting out of the database that we are looking at in regards to the pipeline, that was not working. So the system and what she was doing to follow up to get the calendar booked was, but the tracking and the measuring wasn't. What's my point? We had the process and the system in a conversation. It was constantly being reevaluated. It was constantly being looking at. So in there, we found this step in the process, which is called post-event, that we needed to make some changes in it because she was following the system. But as we were evolving and realizing people weren't replying to phone calls anymore, as we were evolving and we were realizing that our CRM, a lot of the things were going to spam and junk, there was something broken. It didn't make sense why the calendar wasn't booked. So it was a fascinating conversation. I use that example because the solution is, yes, we need systems and process, but yes, they have to be consistently moving in conversation. So my point is, stop spending money and hiring coaches all over and getting seduced by process pushers and manuals, unless you have a framework for consistently keeping that in dialogue and communication and anchoring to it and figuring out how we could hack it, how we can change it, what's working, what's not working, where we need to pivot, where we need more clarity within the system, and allowing your team members to be part of the creation, be part of the refinement, and give them the space and grace to act like a 5-year-old and be like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Because you're like, great question. I don't know. That's what the $1,800 manual said that we should be doing because every other law firm follows it that way. Well, yes, but maybe other law firm is just buying that manual and sitting on the shelf, and they don't have a law firm like yours where you have empowered employees, you have engaged employees who get it, want it, have the capacity for it, and are all about making it simplistic, easy, fun, impactful, and guess what? Profitable. So have fun with this. Pull your team together. Get a pizza, get salads, get whatever you want. Make fun with this. So often people are like, we need to do quality control. We need to do a process audit. That doesn't sound fun, doing a process audit. And that sounds so global. Which process? We do offer 3 different services. We have 72 different processes. Have you seen the big book? Like, just pick fun. Where's their greatest pain point? Is it front desk, client services? Is it marketing? Is it what have you? And let's have fun and pick one. And let's start that. Get a team lead and say, you know what? Your voice matters to me. Like, I don't know if this is the best way to do it anymore. You've been here for a month or two or what have you. And guess what? You get a 2-for-1 with this because it gives you an opportunity to also get their job description super clear, in motion, get it in their bones and their blood. And once people have that, they will, don't mess with my system, don't mess with my process, because they have ownership in it. They were part of the creation or recreation of it. And it's so exciting when you have an employee like, don't mess with my calendar, don't mess with my follow-up, don't mess with my sales, don't mess with my leads, because I'm testing this and I want to see if it's going to work. And if not, I know what our next right move is. So attorneys, have fun. Employees, if you're listening to this, share it with your attorney and be like, let me take on this project. I really want to do this. This is called ideation. This is called creativity. This is called growth. This is called scaling up, and all those buzzwords that we get super excited about. But guess what? It's not on you as the attorney. So here is your homework. If you are tempted to write another check for a process or go to another process webinar or workshop or what have you, stop. Unless you have a key team member enrolled with that and you have a framework for consistent communication, and I mean weekly, I mean daily, in the daily huddle, where you're taking it and you are tracking and measuring it and making sure it works and always refining it and up-leveling it. All right, have fun, reach out, let me know where I can help. We've reached the end of yet another episode of the Hire and Empower with Molly McGrath podcast, where dream teams of entrepreneurs in an entrepreneur's world really do come true. Listen, whether you're a business owner, employee, executive, or hiring manager, we fully understand hiring, onboarding, and leadership is expensive, exhausting, often overwhelming, and absolutely time-consuming for the already taxed professional. Well, we have your back on all fronts. For 25 years and counting, we have transformed over 4,000 law firm teams into the most efficient, resourceful, and profitable asset of your business. Check out our Smart Hire solution, our employee leadership program, and the 66-day law firm turnaround at hiringandempowering.com.